about trespassing on private property and the way our constitutional rights work as far as the First Amendment. So, when I was growing up, the First Amendment meant that, let's say, if I was in a group of people that were protesting, and those protesters stayed on public public sidewalks, streets, you know, you could be in front of buildings as long as you're in public land. You could be in parks as long as you're on public land. So the First Amendment is good for protesting because anywhere public land is, where people can walk freely without trespassing, is a good thing. But here's the kicker: when you violate those boundaries and you go on to land that is owned by individuals, you are no longer on public land. You are on private land, and that is called trespassing, no matter how you look at it. Let's take Walmart, for example. If you go in front of Walmart on the sidewalk, you can protest there all you want, as long as you have a permit to do so. If you leave the sidewalk and go on to the property of Walmart, now you are in violation of trespassing. You just invaded a private property dwelling. And that is means for the people that own the property to have you arrested and 86th from that property for the rest of your life if they wanted to, or for a few years if they wanted to. But as of that point, they have all the rights to have you arrested and removed from that private land. It's the same living in your home. If you live in a house and somebody comes up in your yard, they are now trespassing on private property. But if they're in front of your house on the sidewalk, they are no longer trespassing on private property. They are on public land. It's like parking your car in front of your house on the street. Nobody can tell you you can't park in front of their house because you are on public land. You're not on your private land. Hello, how you doing? Thanks for joining, and probably going to leave because I'm quite boring, but we're just talking about private property versus public property and trespassing. So there's a video out about Don Lemon, who went to a protest, which is perfectly normal, First Amendment right. He followed the protest, which is perfectly normal, First Amendment right, to a church, which is perfectly normal, First Amendment right. But the problem is he broke the law as soon as he entered the private dwelling. That is breaking the law, and no court is going to throw it out. If he's prosecuted like they want to prosecute him, he's gave you my light. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your guys' likes. You don't have to like join my channel or nothing like that. I don't really care about that, but I do like the likes. It just shows me that people are actually watching my videos, and I'm a boring. Oh, you're subscribed? Oh, thank you very much, man. That's freaking awesome. All right, guys. Thank you. So I don't see too well at all. And on my phone, your comments are so small, I could barely read them. Me too. Thank you. All right. Is that Hannah? Hannah and Annie Ball Rodriguez? Cool. Thank you guys. So we're talking about First Amendment rights and how far you can take those rights before you break the law. And when Don Lemon went into the church, he broke the law because it's private property. Even though the doors are open, let's take Kmart, okay? If you go into a Kmart, the moment you step on that land, you're on private property. And Kmart has every right to have you removed and kicked off of their property, right? However, if you go on the sidewalk in front of Kmart, they can't do anything about it. You can record all you want. You can go and do all the journalism you want on the sidewalk in front of Kmart because you're on private, I mean, you're on public land. So that is where your rights take over as, being able to have your First Amendment rights with you. And you're protected because you're on the sidewalk. But here's the problem. They went into the church. If Don Lemon would have just stayed out on the sidewalk and wondered what was going on in that church, he wouldn't have broke any laws. But, he took it upon himself to walk in with these people trespassing on private property. So if the church owners want to, which I don't know if they will or not, they can press charges against Don Lemon. They can actually have him arrested. They could take him to court and they can have him 86 from that property for the rest of his life, which means if he stepped foot back on the property, he would go to jail and they would have him arrested and all that bull. However, if you decide to do this, you are on your own. You no longer have any First Amendment rights or any rights of freedom of speech because you are on private land. Public. I'm crazy. I'm just old. Don't even listen to me. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But yeah, and you guys really need to, journalists really need to know this. And people my age that are up above 45 years old, we should know this because we grew up in this era. If you grew up in the 70s and the 80s, you already know your rights. You know how far you can, your boundaries. You know how far you could take these rights. You know where these rights actually stand in your favor. But as soon as you go into somebody's property, I don't care if the doors are open or not. Come on. The doors are open at Walmart all day long. But that doesn't mean you could go in there and steal and cause chaos and mischief and not expect to be confronted in some way with the law, kicking you out, possibly the store pressing charges against you and having you arrested because you're still on private domain. It's not public. Remember, sidewalk, parking lot, structure. That's how it works. And as soon as you go from the sidewalk onto the grass or onto any structure, boom, it's a private domain and you can get kicked off the lot. You can get arrested for it. So if Don Lemon went into this private structure, then he needs to be accountable for what he did. And as long as I see him on YouTube saying, oh, you don't know the full story. I had every right to be in there. I'm a journalist. We don't give a crap who you are, what you are. You trespassed on private property. Your journalism has no effect on private property. And you ain't going to see news media go to any private area or private structure and just walk on in because it's private property. It doesn't happen. And Don Lemon, he should have known the law. He should have known what he was doing. He could not go into that church and interrupt their services on private property. That is, every one of those people could be arrested. I mean, if the church, it would take the church to prosecute them, or the owners of that building. But I'm just saying what he did, that's totally wrong. He has every right to his journalism. He has every right to follow people, every right to talk to people. But you're crossing the boundary once you step off the sidewalk onto private property. That's all I was trying to say. And There's another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, California. So it seems like U-Haul did a study. Yes, U-Haul. They actually did a study on people leaving California, and their most business from U-Haul is from California leaving the state of California. They're actually leaving in record numbers, and U-Haul's business is confirmed to be the number one best money-making business in all of the country coming out of California, because people are leaving California in record numbers. Now, where are they going? Texas. And they said they were going to Florida. So those are the two states. When people leave California, most of them are going into Texas. But some of them take that little extra trip across the country and go into Florida. Now, I don't know why anybody would want to live in Florida. When I go to Mexico with my wife, I die because it's so humid there. It's so hot where we go. And yeah, we go right next to the coast where the water's hot. It's all humid. You have to take 4 showers a day because you just sweat all day long. It is horrible, but it's beautiful at the same time. But yeah, everything we do in our lifetime is just, I don't know. It's kind of strange, weird, and crazy, and all in one, because you got California going crazy. You have, I believe Don Lemon may be from California. I don't know, but I think he might be, but I don't know. And then, you got these protesters trespassing in a church on private property, thinking that their First Amendment right is following them. It just gets crazy, guys. It gets super, super crazy. But anyway, it is what it is. Life gets crazy. I know. I'm dumb. I know. I'm not a good talker. I know. But it is what it is. And thank you all for at least stopping by, saying hello, and moving on. And I appreciate that so much. And I love every single one of you just for stopping by and saying hi. I don't have many people to talk to, so it's great when I get to talk to people. So thanks for the 2 thumbs up, whoever left that. They're already gone, passed on, but thank you so much. I'll talk to you later.